Have you ever felt like your VA disability claim vanished into a black hole the moment you hit submit? You check the tracker every single day, maybe twice, and the status remains stubbornly stuck on gathering evidence. Weeks bleed into months, and suddenly, years have passed. You feel unseen, unheard, and maybe even a little angry, wondering if the VA is intentionally dragging its feet. The truth is, while the VA system is undoubtedly complex and often understaffed, the most frustrating delays, the ones that add months or even years to your wait, are often triggered by entirely predictable, yet easily avoidable, procedural traps that veterans unwittingly walk right into. Before you schedule that next frustrating VSO appointment or spend another agonizing hour staring at the eBenefits portal, you need to understand the 7 claim delay traps that are silently sabotaging your timeline. This isn't about blaming the veteran. It's about giving you the specialized knowledge to navigate the bureaucracy like an expert and cut years off your waiting time. The first and perhaps most common claim delay trap we see is what I call the initial intake overload, or the kitchen sink approach. This happens when a veteran, understandably wanting to get everything filed and done at once, submits a claim listing every single ache, pain, and psychological stressor they've experienced since their discharge, regardless of whether they have a current diagnosis or strong evidence for service connection for all of them. Imagine walking into a courtroom and presenting 100 different, loosely connected arguments simultaneously. The judge, or in this case the VA rater, is immediately overwhelmed, and the process grinds to a halt. When you submit 10 or 12 different conditions in a single initial claim, you are not expediting the process. You are guaranteeing delay. Here is the procedural mechanism of the delay. VA raters are required to address every single condition listed on the claim form. If you list tinnitus, knee pain, PTSD, a skin condition, GERD, and residual effects from a shoulder injury, that's 6 separate conditions. Each of those conditions requires its own unique evidentiary review, its own search for service treatment records, STRs, and potentially its own specialized compensation and pension, C&P, examination. The VA system is designed to triage and process claims based on complexity and completeness. By filing a massive, sprawling claim, you force the system to treat your file as the most complex case possible, which immediately pushes it to the back of the queue for specialized review. The rater must spend hours, sometimes days, just trying to determine which conditions are even remotely plausible and which need immediate development. If the evidence for one condition, say the skin condition, is completely missing, the rater cannot simply ignore it and move on to the strong PTSD claim. They must initiate the duty to assist for that missing piece of evidence, sending requests to military archives, private doctors, or other agencies. This single weak point in your massive claim effectively holds hostage the entire, otherwise strong claim package. Think of it this way. Your strongest claim, the one that is 90% ready to be rated, is stuck waiting for the development of your weakest claim, the one you only added just in case. The rater cannot issue a partial decision because the original claim form encompassed everything. This creates a cascading failure effect. If the VA needs to schedule 5 different C&P exams, one for orthopedic, one for mental health, one for audiology, one for gastrointestinal, and one for dermatology, the scheduling office has to coordinate 5 separate appointments, potentially with 5 different providers, all while juggling thousands of other veterans. The logistical nightmare of coordinating this multi-specialty scheduling adds months to the timeline. A much smarter strategy, one that high-level VA advocates use, is targeted filing. Focus on the 1 or 2 conditions for which you have the strongest current diagnosis and the clearest link to service. Get those claims approved first. Once they are finalized and you are receiving benefits, then file a supplemental claim for the next set of conditions. This method allows the VA to process smaller, cleaner files faster, establishing your eligibility sooner and avoiding the massive administrative drag caused by the kitchen sink approach. Submitting a focused claim allows the rater to complete their review quickly, limiting the scope of the evidence search and the number of required exams, thus bypassing the backlog that plagues the multi-condition filings. It's a strategic choice, speed and certainty over comprehensive, yet slow, submission. This leads us directly into the second catastrophic claim, delay trap. The missing nexus. This is arguably the single biggest reason why claims are denied or delayed indefinitely. Veterans often assume that because they were diagnosed with a condition while on active duty or because they have documented pain now, the VA will automatically connect the dots. They believe the service event is the connection. But the VA requires three distinct components for service connection. 1. A current diagnosis of a disability by a medical professional. 2. Evidence of an event, injury, or disease that occurred during active duty. And 3. The crucial medically sound link or nexus between the current disability and the in-service event. If you submit a claim lacking this explicit nexus, the claim is incomplete and the delay clock starts ticking immediately. The procedural trap here is that if the nexus is absent, the VA rater is forced to rely on the CNP examiner to establish it. This is a massive gamble. The CNP examiner's primary role is to assess the severity of the diagnosed condition, not necessarily to act as your advocate in establishing the service connection. If the veteran arrives at the CNP exam without a strong pre-existing medical opinion connecting their current diagnosis to their service, the examiner might simply state in their report, "The veteran has condition X, but the relationship to service is undetermined," or worse, is less likely than not. When the VA rater sees that lack of nexus, the claim is dead on arrival, resulting in an immediate denial, which forces the veteran into the lengthy appeals process, a delay that can easily span 2 to 5 years. To avoid this monumental delay, you must preempt the VA's need to search for the nexus. The key is securing an independent medical opinion, IMO, from a private physician who has reviewed your entire medical and service history. This IMO must contain the magic words. The physician must state unequivocally that based on their professional medical review, your current condition is at least as likely as not, due to or aggravated by your military service. Anything less than this phrase, such as "it is possible" or "it may be related," is insufficient and will be dismissed by the rater, throwing you back into the delay cycle. Furthermore, the IMO must provide clear medical rationale. It cannot simply be a one-sentence conclusion. It must cite relevant medical literature, reference specific events in your service records, and logically connect the dots for the rater. A weak IMO is just as bad as no IMO because it gives the VA an easy reason to dismiss your evidence and rely solely on their own CNP examiner, whose opinion may be unfavorable. The delay caused by a missing nexus isn't just the denial time, it's the time spent fighting the denial. You must then file a supplemental claim or a board appeal, requiring you to gather the nexus evidence you should have had in the first place. This process includes filing new forms, waiting for a new docket number, and potentially waiting for another CNP exam just to address the nexus issue. If the initial claim had included a strong, well-reasoned nexus statement, the rater could have moved directly to rating the severity, saving potentially years of back and forth. The lesson is clear. Never submit a claim for service connection without establishing the nexus first. This proactive step is the single greatest defense against the most prolonged procedural delays in the VA system. Moving past the initial filing, the third major delay trap occurs during the medical examination phase. The CNP exam misunderstanding, or the tough guy trap. Many veterans conditioned by military culture enter the compensation and pension, CNP, exam determined to appear resilient, minimize their pain, or downplay the severity of their symptoms. They might say, "It's not too bad," or "I can manage," when in reality the pain is debilitating. This ingrained tendency to show strength is a procedural disaster for your claim. The C&P exam is not a diagnostic session, it is a rating session. The examiner's entire purpose is to document the current severity and functional impact of your diagnosed condition. The resulting report is the primary document the VA rater uses to assign a rating percentage, 0%, 10%, 50%, etc. If you minimize your symptoms, the examiner is legally and professionally obligated to document that minimization. If they ask about pain frequency and you say, "It happens maybe once a week," but in reality, it's daily, the report will reflect the weekly frequency, resulting in a lower rating or even a denial if the symptoms don't meet the minimum threshold for compensation. The delay here is twofold. First, the low rating or denial forces you into the appeal system immediately. Second, and more subtly, the C&P report creates a substantial hurdle. If you later try to file a supplemental claim arguing that your condition is much worse, you must overcome the initial negative evidence provided by the VA's own examiner. You must provide new and relevant evidence that directly contradicts the initial finding, evidence that proves the examiner's findings were incomplete or inaccurate. This often requires another private medical opinion, extensive lay evidence detailing daily struggles, and potentially another C&P exam, all of which adds significant time to the process. To avoid this delay, veterans must shift their mindset. The C&P exam is the time to accurately and honestly portray your worst days, focusing intensely on the functional limitations caused by the disability. When asked about pain, do not use vague terms. Use specific examples. "I cannot lift my child. I miss work 2 days a month. I rely on my spouse to tie my shoes." Document the frequency, severity, and duration of the symptoms, and crucially, describe how the condition affects your ability to work, socialize, and perform daily activities. For mental health exams, this means being completely open about intrusive thoughts, anger issues, social avoidance, and employment difficulties. If you only report moderate symptoms, the examiner will document moderate symptoms, and the rater will assign a moderate rating, which is often far below what the veteran truly deserves, resulting in a prolonged battle to increase the rating. Understanding that the C&P exam is a documentation exercise, not a test of endurance, is vital to securing a favorable and timely decision. The failure to accurately report severity is a self-inflicted delay that can take years to unwind. The fourth delay trap is one that seems counterintuitive because it involves relying on the VA's stated responsibilities. The records chase delay, or waiting for the VA to find everything. Under the law, the VA has a duty to assist the veteran in gathering relevant records. This includes service treatment records, STRs, VA medical records, and even private medical records if the veteran provides the necessary authorization forms, like the HIPAA release. Many veterans file their claim and then wait patiently, assuming the VA is efficiently gathering every piece of evidence needed. This assumption is a recipe for massive delay. The reality of the duty to assist in a high-volume system is that record retrieval is often slow, fragmented, and prone to error. Military records may be archived off-site, private medical offices may be slow to respond to VA requests, or the VA's internal systems may fail to link all your records across different VA facilities. If the VA requests records from your private doctor and the doctor fails to respond within the mandated timeframe, the VA must send a follow-up request and perhaps a third request before documenting the failure to retrieve. Each one of these steps adds weeks or months to the claim timeline. The rater cannot proceed with the claim until the evidence-gathering phase is complete, or until the VA has definitively documented that the evidence cannot be obtained despite multiple attempts. The procedural delay is triggered when the rater reviews the file and notes that a critical piece of evidence, say the record of a hospitalization during service, is missing. Even if the rest of the claim is strong, the rater must pause the review and initiate the records chase. This pause can last 6 months or longer, solely due to the bureaucratic speed of records retrieval. The proactive solution to bypass this delay is to become your own records manager. Before you even submit the claim, gather every piece of private medical evidence you possess that relates to the claimed condition. This includes doctor's notes, surgical reports, test results, and prescription histories. Do not wait for the VA to request these documents. Submit them yourself, clearly labeled with your initial claim. For military records, if you do not have a complete copy of your STRs, you should request them directly from the National Archives, NNERA. At the same time, you file your claim. By submitting the key evidence directly, you effectively short-circuit the VA's records chase. When the rater opens your file, they see that the critical evidence is already present, allowing them to skip the lengthy development phase and move directly to scheduling the C&P exam or issuing a rating. This single step can bypass months of administrative limbo, transforming a slow-moving claim into a fast-track case. Remember, the VA is required to consider all evidence presented, and self-submission is the quickest route to ensuring that evidence is considered immediately, eliminating the records chase as a source of delay. The fifth trap is related to the evidence itself, specifically the buddy letter trap, or misunderstanding the power of lay evidence. Lay evidence, often called buddy letters or personal statements, are written testimonies from people who witnessed the in-service event or who witnessed the current severity of the veteran's symptoms: spouses, friends, fellow service members. These statements are incredibly powerful, but only if they are used correctly. The trap occurs when veterans use lay evidence to try and prove a medical fact, which it cannot do, or when the letters are poorly formatted or lack essential details, rendering them useless to the rater. Procedurally, lay evidence is vital for two specific purposes. 1. Establishing that an event occurred in service, particularly if the event was not formally documented in STRs, e.g., a sudden, undocumented injury in the field, or witnessing a traumatic event. And 2. Describing the functional impact and severity of the current disability, particularly how it affects the veteran's life outside of a clinical setting. A buddy letter stating, "I saw John fall off the truck in 1985," is excellent lay evidence for the in-service event. A spouse's statement detailing, "John wakes up screaming 3 times a week and cannot hold a job due to his anxiety," is excellent lay evidence for current severity. The delay trap is sprung when the lay evidence is vague or attempts to establish a medical diagnosis or nexus. A letter stating, "I think John has PTSD because he seems depressed," is medically irrelevant and will be ignored by the rater. Furthermore, if the buddy letter is just a handwritten note on loose paper, or if it doesn't clearly identify the witness, their relationship to the veteran, and the dates of the witnessed events, the rater may deem it unreliable or insufficient. The rater needs reliable, verifiable evidence. To ensure lay evidence accelerates your claim rather than delaying it, use the official VA Form 21-210, Statement in Support of Claim. This form ensures the testimony is properly documented and linked to your file. Crucially, the content must be specific. If a buddy is attesting to an in-service event, they must include the date, even approximate, the location, and what they specifically witnessed. If a spouse is attesting to current severity, they must provide specific examples of the veteran's functional limitations, not just general statements of pain or sadness. By submitting clear, relevant, and properly formatted lay evidence, you provide the rater with the contextual details necessary to corroborate your claim, especially in cases where medical records from decades ago are sparse. When the rater sees strong, consistent lay evidence backing up the veteran's story, it builds a compelling case that speeds up the decision-making process. Conversely, submitting dozens of vague, unverified letters simply adds bulk to the file, requiring the rater to spend time sifting through irrelevant information, which naturally causes delay. The sixth significant claim delay trap is encountered after the initial decision, where a veteran falls into the premature appeal, or choosing the wrong appeals lane. Since the implementation of the Appeals Modernization Act, AMA, veterans have three distinct lanes for challenging an unfavorable decision: the supplemental claim, SC, the higher level review, HLR, and the Board of Veterans' Appeals, BVA. Choosing the wrong lane guarantees a significant delay, often measured in years. The procedural difference is paramount. A higher level review, HLR, is a request for a senior rater to review the existing evidence and determine if an error was made in the initial decision based on the evidence available at that time. You cannot submit new evidence in an HLR. If you file an HLR when the actual problem with your initial claim was a missing nexus letter, the HLR rater will simply confirm that the denial was correct based on the evidence presented, and you will be denied again. This forces you to file a supplemental claim afterward, meaning you wasted 6 to 12 months in the HLR process. The supplemental claim, SC lane, is specifically designed for submitting new and relevant evidence that was not part of the initial decision. If your claim was denied because of the missing nexus trap, Trap 2, the supplemental claim is the correct lane to submit your newly acquired independent medical opinion, IMO. However, if you bypass the SC and immediately appeal to the Board of Veterans' Appeals, BVA, which has the longest wait times, often 3 to 7 years, you have trapped yourself in the slowest bureaucratic process available simply because you didn't file the required new evidence via the supplemental claim first. The delay is triggered by procedural requirements. The BVA is the final adjudicative body. They are dealing with the most complex and long-standing disagreements. Their dockets are perpetually overloaded. By jumping immediately to the BVA without first exhausting the faster, more efficient lanes, HLR or SC, you volunteer to wait years for a decision that could have been resolved in months. Furthermore, if you file a BVA appeal and then realize you need to submit new evidence, you may have to withdraw your BVA appeal and file a supplemental claim anyway, losing your place in line and the potential effective date associated with the initial appeal. The critical takeaway here is to diagnose the reason for the denial before choosing the lane. If the denial was due to an administrative error or a misinterpretation of existing evidence, choose the HLR for a quicker review. If the denial was due to missing evidence, like a nexus letter, a C&P report that minimized symptoms, or missing service records, choose the supplemental claim and submit the new evidence immediately. Only appeal to the BVA if you have exhausted the other two lanes, or if you require a formal hearing and a complete review of a long-standing, complex legal issue. Understanding and respecting the procedural differences between these three lanes is essential to avoiding years-long delays in the appeals process. Choosing the wrong lane is a tactical error that the system punishes with prolonged administrative purgatory. Finally, we address the seventh claim delay trap, the wrong program pitfall, or confusing benefits. The VA offers a wide array of benefits, including service-connected disability compensation, non-service-connected pension, total disability based on individual unemployability, TDIU, and dependency and indemnity compensation, DIC. Veterans sometimes file for the wrong program, either out of confusion or desperation, and this misfiling can significantly complicate and delay the processing of their primary service-connected disability claim. The most common example involves the confusion between service-connected disability and the buyout VA pension. The VA pension is a needs-based benefit for low-income veterans who are permanently and totally disabled for reasons not connected to service, shunts, or who are 65 or older. Service-connected compensation, conversely, is paid regardless of income and is based solely on the severity of service-related injuries. If a veteran files a claim that mixes elements of both, for example, filing for pension while simultaneously pursuing a high-rating disability claim, it can confuse the rater, requiring the file to be routed to different departments for income verification and service verification, adding substantial time to the processing. The rater must pause the disability claim to clarify which benefit the veteran is truly seeking or if they qualify for both, creating a procedural bottleneck. Another critical pitfall is the premature or incorrect filing for TDIU, total disability based on individual unemployability. TDIU allows a veteran who is not 100% rated but is unable to maintain substantially gainful employment due to their service-connected disabilities to be paid at the 100% rate. TDIU claims require extensive development, including employment history reviews, vocational assessments, and detailed evidence proving the inability to work. If a veteran files for TDIU when their underlying service-connected rating is still low, e.g. 30% combined, or when they haven't yet established service connection for their primary debilitating condition, the TDIU claim adds a massive layer of complexity and development requirements to a file that should be focused on establishing the base service connection first. The rater must develop the TDIU component, which involves sending out forms to previous employers and conducting extensive interviews, even if the underlying disability claim hasn't been finalized. This immediately slows down the primary claim, forcing the rater to wait for the employment documentation before moving forward. The solution is strategic sequencing. Focus exclusively on establishing service connection and securing the highest possible percentage rating first. Once you have a stable rating, typically 60% or more combined, or a single condition at 40% with a combined rating of 70%, then file for TDIU if you meet the unemployability criteria. This allows the VA to process the cleaner initial disability claim quickly. By separating the claims and filing them sequentially, you ensure that the complex requirements of programs like TDIU or pension do not derail the more straightforward yet foundational service-connected disability claim. Filing for the wrong benefit or mixing benefit types prematurely is a guaranteed path to procedural purgatory, where your file bounces between departments, accumulating months of unnecessary delay. So, let's pull this all together. The agonizing delays you experience are rarely due to a single administrative malice. They are the result of predictable procedural traps that compound over time. The system is designed to process clean, complete files efficiently, but it bogs down exponentially when forced to deal with ambiguity, missing links, or mixed claims. You have the power to circumvent these traps. Stop overwhelming the system with the kitchen sink approach. Focus your initial filing on one or two strong claims. Never submit a claim without a strong, explicit nexus linking your current condition to your service. This is non-negotiable. At your C&P exam, be honest and detailed about your functional limitations. Your honesty is not a weakness. It is the necessary documentation for your rating. Do not wait for the VA to chase down your records. Submit all private and key service records proactively to eliminate the records chase delay. Use lay evidence correctly, focusing on in-service events and current functional severity, using the official forms. Be strategic in your appeals lane choice, diagnosing the denial reason before choosing between HLR, SC, or BVA. And finally, ensure you are filing for the correct program at the correct time, prioritizing service connection over complex benefits, like TDIU or pension, until the foundation is set. Your preparation is your strongest defense against the bureaucratic drag. By understanding these 7 delay traps, You transform from a passive recipient of the VA process into an active manager of your claim, drastically reducing your wait time and ensuring you receive the compensation you earned and deserve sooner rather than later. The time to gather your evidence, secure that nexus, and clean up your file is right now. Do not wait for the VA to tell you what's missing. Tell the VA exactly what they need to know.